I'm going to propose to you a hypothetical.
Is this your question of the week with Nate Harold?
Yeah. So if you had the opportunity to live in one of these three places, which one would you choose? Would you choose the Mac and Dennis codependent house?
Yeah, but I texted you 911, dude. That means it's an emergency.
Would you choose Charlie and Frank's Anything Goes house?
Oh, botched-o!
Or would you prefer the solitude of Dee and her cat/cats?
What are you talking about? I got a cat, so what?
I don't know if I would want to join Frank and Charlie. Charlie's antics don't seem like they would get me in as much trouble as Frank's antics. In that scenario, I'd probably want to live with Dee. She seems like easy to deal with, voice of reason.
Especially in this episode.
If I complain enough, she would peel my apples.
Oh, my God. All right. If you just shut up, I will peel the apple for you the way that Mac likes you to eat it. Give it to me. Give it to me.
Come on, to a beautiful show. It's gonna be awesome.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of It's Always Stockholm in Los Angeles. My name is Nate Harold.
And I am Will Noon.
Today, we are talking about Season 5, Episode 9, Mac and Dennis Break Up. Written by Scott Marder and Rob Russell, directed by Fred Savage. So, the opening scene of this episode is I feel like this is a very well-written opening scene. The theme of the show is set up immediately. It's Mac and Dennis being crazy annoying.
D, sweet D, sweet D, sweet D, sweet D. Hey!
And
Right.
making fun of Dee, and then Dee hits a nerve.
It's funny because I feel like you guys are two codependent losers who are so wrapped up in each other that it's hard for you to see how pathetic your lives are.
On their way out.
I think that this episode in general seems like it was written well. There's a slightly different tone. They don't rely, I guess they do rely on yelling and the dumbness and the chaos, but there's also, I don't know, there's some layer of writiness.
Yeah,
if you will.
There's no patties in this episode.
Yeah, that's another strange part. But it's interesting, I think, in this opening scene where they start by making fun of Dee because she's got a cat.
Right.
And she's trying to make it sound not pathetic, but Dennis points out that she's just making it worse.
If you listen to yourself, you would realize you're only strengthening our argument.
Yeah, so it starts out with that. Then they come in, they look for the popcorn bowl, and she's like, wait, why did you both have to come over just to borrow a bowl?
I was going to hold the bowl. Dennis was going to stand next to me and make snide comments.
Yeah, that's the transition. She realizes how codependent they're being. And then on the way out, she makes fun of them for being 30-year-olds that are completely codependent and pathetic. And they laugh it off, and then they stop laughing and realize she might be right.
The bit that I love the most in that, when Dee is calling them out, is when they talk about the check-in.
He always checks in with me.
He likes to have me check in.
That's just a great little bit of lore. And it's also striking to see how much their relationship has changed over the seasons, because it seems like they like each other in season 5. In the later seasons, it seems like they hate each other.
Yeah, they go through phases. You could see it in this episode. Dennis kind of blows up when they have the discussion. So.
It's more the opening scene where you see their friendship.
But also that friendship does seem strained and a little forced.
Sure.
I think you referenced that kind of the jokes they're making are a little too on purpose. They definitely seem like they're in a rut. They just don't know it.
They do the bird thing, and Mac's that's kind of old, which is funny to see them call that joke old, and it lasts for another 12 years.
Also, I'd like to point out that they call Dee a spinster, which I found out is technically incorrect.
Okay, what is a spinster?
For some reason, a spinster is very specific with the age, and technically she would be a thornback.
Oh, is spinster older?
No, a spinster is younger.
What?
I guess the term is so old that being 23 to 26 or something is considered
whoa.
Oh, you should have been married a long time ago. You're a spinster. And then after 26, apparently you become a thornback.
What's after a thornback?
I don't know. The only thing that I could find out after that was someone making it up. Not that someone didn't make up thornback or spinster, but they made it up long enough ago.
I feel like that's something that's pretty common, is to call a single woman of whatever age with a cat. Or maybe they like knitting too. It's not a fair thing to say, but I feel like it's commonly used.
Oh yeah, spinster, cat lady. And then you get to the male equivalent, which is a bachelor.
Yeah. Yeah, come on. We gotta
Doesn't
come up
really
with
work.
some digs for the guys too. Let's talk about some alliances, Will.
Okay.
In my opinion, and then I'll pass it over to you. In my opinion, this episode is about the alliances.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of focal.
So what do you got?
Well, I don't know. Despite Charlie coming in to help Dee feels like she's on her own.
Yes.
She doesn't want the help. And it's only briefly. And right after that, Frank comes in, and then Charlie and Frank go into their gruesome twosome dance. So
Doesn't take long.
yeah, so I would say that Charlie and Frank are aligned in a set. Well, there's a little bit of shifting. Like they are, and then they aren't. And he bails, and he goes to hang out with Dennis. So you could think maybe he was on Dennis's team for a second, but then he's not. So I would say they're both floating until they reconnect as the gruesome twosome.
Sure.
So I'm going to say Frank and Charlie.
Along those lines, I was going to say how awesome it is to see Charlie kind of like, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but he's kind of in a position of power in, if you want to call like when he's with Dennis, quote unquote, an alliance, how he's so dismissive to him.
Right.
And that's not something you see that often. Usually it's the other way around.
We're still gonna watch the movie, right, men? Yeah?
Right. There are very few times, like maybe the video game episode,
Exactly.
where Charlie gets power and he can like lord it over people. But yeah, there's a lot of great moments in that. And it's funny because Charlie doesn't usually get to, but Dennis does play the subservient role every once in a while.
Yeah.
I don't know, like once or twice per season, maybe. Mm-hmm. He gets into that very childlike, dependent.
Yeah.
I guess when he's a gigolo, he acts very much subservient to Frank.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
There is like a bit of a precedent set. He does that to Mac also a few times in their codependency. Like in this episode, it's kind of over the top when talking about, skin and apple seeds and what to do if you accidentally swallow one. But I can't think of specifics, but I feel like it happens.
You saying Dennis is being
subservient to Mac?
Subservient?
Like it's like a character that Dennis falls into.
Oh, well, I mean,
occasionally.
a great example of that is when they're reconnecting and Mac does the thing where he's like,
smoke some cigarettes. The smoke will suffocate the bacteria in your stomach.
Right.
And Dennis is
But
like, oh my God, thank you. Like, you saved me.
That's what I'm saying, is that in this episode, he definitely falls into that weird role, and he stays in it.
Right.
And he's a sub for most of it, and he treats Charlie that way and Mac that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a character that he plays. But Charlie rarely gets the chance to be the Damme.
Yeah, and it's so great to see.
Yeah, when he's eating those Cheetos, or like when he's mouthing things to Dee with Dennis in the background.
One of my favorite lines.
Yeah, I wish you could drop the audio in, but there's no audio.
It's the hand motion that gets me when Dennis is like, should I start the movie? And Charlie's like not saying yes or no. He's just going, and like, stop talking. I love it.
Yeah. There's also in that scene specifically, and it also sort of relates to Dee, but there's specifically a lot of like background acting.
Yeah, there is.
In this.
Yeah.
Dennis is creeping around, trying to figure out, he wants to get involved, but then he doesn't, and he's waiting, and he's like looking expectantly, and he's trying to keep busy.
Charlie didn't tell him what to do. He didn't tell him to start the movie.
Should I start it? I don't want you to miss the setup.
Hey, man, hey. I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep bugging you, but you didn't tell me what to do. You want me to start it now? You want me to wait? I'll wait.
Yeah, start it.
But I want to watch it with you. I mean, I will
Just
wait.
start the movie, man, because I'm having a conversation here.
And then Dee is like crawling around on the ground while Dennis is having a conversation, maybe with himself, maybe with her.
Right.
And it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's something you don't see too often because I feel like it's probably very annoying for the actors to like.
Right.
If you're not in the foreground of the shot,
to be doing something so specific,
it can't be like a body double or anything. Like it has to be you because you're like responding to things and like speaking and then going back.
It almost relates to our discussion of extras and how like you can't overact as an extra in the background because then you're going to steal the show. But like as an actor, I'm assuming you want to be seen. You want to draw attention to yourself.
Yeah.
you probably have that dichotomy. And yeah, that's sort of what they're doing. They're like acting and they want it to be funny, but it's also in the background.
Right.
Yeah, we don't see that.
Very subtle and very effective.
Yeah. So anyway, I think those are the alliances. Yeah, both Charlie and Frank split and then return, and obviously Dennis and Mac split and then return.
And also importantly, Dee by herself.
Yeah.
That's all she wants. Like, I don't blame her.
Well, I guess in the beginning she does want an alliance. She's jealous that everyone else has alliances.
Oh, you're saying the cat.
Well, sort of. I'm just saying Dee feels the need for an alliance, therefore
see.
she gets a cat. But then as soon as Charlie comes in to sort of start one,
Right.
she realized, and Dennis actually as well. Dennis comes over and he's like, "Heyo,
Hey-oh!
movie night, let's do this." She realizes she doesn't want an alliance, and she says that I think when she brings them together, she's like, "I'm gonna go home and be alone."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So she realizes that she's not into alliances.
Okay, so that's a perfect transition into something I wanted to talk about briefly, which is codependency.
Okay. Yeah.
I feel like Dennis is portraying a lot of the signs and symptoms of codependency, especially in that scene when he comes over to talk or hang out with Dee.
Mm-hmm.
One of the characteristics of codependency is inability to tolerate being alone, accompanied by frantic efforts to avoid being alone.
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly what he's doing, because he wants to watch the movie, even though he told Mac he wants to he'll watch it by himself. He's not going to. He can't stand to be alone, so he goes over to Dee's apartment, who doesn't really seem like he likes her or she likes him.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, let's watch this movie. And she could care less, obviously.
Right. She's busy.
I wasn't spending enough time by myself. I wasn't being an independent individual. I wasn't flourishing. So let's watch the movie together, you and me.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle of something with my cat right now.
And then once he realizes that she's busy and not paying attention to him, he calls Charlie,
Right.
which seems very out of character.
I mean, he's kind of manipulating Charlie, because he's like, he probably doesn't really want to hang out with him, as he says later in the scene.
Hey, D. Charlie's coming over.
I don't care.
Yeah, shit, I don't care either.
Right.
He's just like, yeah, he has this like weird phobia of being like alone with his own thoughts, maybe.
Yeah. So they weren't joking. It wasn't just a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, the character
Right.
actually does have a decent, display of codependency.
Some of the other characteristics seem like it fits Mac. I'm wondering if they just looked at the definition of codependency and then wrote the show around that, because
Right.
some other characteristics are perfectionism,
okay.
cleaning, over-controlling.
Max being annoying?
That's a big surprise. You bossing you around a whole bunch?
Totally bossing me around.
Yeah, typical.
Lack of trust.
The video store clerk guy. I feel like you won't stop talking about him. Huh?
Okay. Yeah. Jealous.
Super jealous.
Like,
yeah.
I like when Frank comes back from the grocery store and says that he ran into the video clerk guy.
One of my favorite lines. Yeah, because Frank is super willing to help Mac in this like weird jealousy thing. First of all, how would he know? Is he making that up? How would he know? Is there one
How would he
person
know what?
that works in that video store?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there could be details that we don't know that got passed around, but
Mac is so fearful of the video store clerk guy being a beefcake.
And I bumped into that guy at the video store.
Beefcake?
Total jerk off.
we could talk about body mass. I mean,
Right. So this episode is kind of based in first of all, Tuesday night is movie night is what Dennis says, but the opening of the show says it's a Friday. So
Friday, yeah.
we'll just get past it. But yeah, so they're going to watch Predator again.
which they've watched. What does he say? Like,
I know you wanted to see Predator again, but I feel like we've seen that 30 times in the last 2 months and thought maybe we could mix things up.
it seems like more than once a week, significantly.
Predator is a 1987 film starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Carl Weathers,
Jesse the Body Ventura.
Exactly.
And honestly, like 3 more beefcakes, maybe.
A lot of beefcakes. Richard Chavez, Bill Duke. Yeah. It makes sense to me that Mac's favorite movie is Predator.
Rob McElhenney in real life seems actually obsessed with men's physiques.
Sure.
And so it makes sense for him to write the character. Also, it makes sense for him to have that crazy transition.
Right.
I don't know if do you think he planned it out?
Yeah,
that way?
It's hard to say. Maybe, but I feel like that's giving him maybe too much credit. It's hard to say. But yes, Mac has always talked about packing on mass. And there's a lot of mass. There's a lot of mass in this movie.
Yeah, when Mac delivers that line.
Dennis,
Whether they can
body mass alone.
That's
That's what I was trying to avoid. A conversation about body mass, okay?
That is one of the most iconic, and for me, one of the most quoted lines.
Totally.
And he's not wrong.
Yeah, it seemed like the making of Predator was maybe like a little competitive between some of the actors. I know that Arnold they filmed it in Mexico, and Arnold flew like gym equipment down there so he could like keep his exact routine. And I read that Carl Weathers...
His name is Carl Weathers, and he's my new acting teacher.
...would wake up at like 3 o'clock in the morning to work out so no one would see him, to give the appearance that his body was like natural. So like, you guys have to work out to look this good, like not me.
Oh my God. That's amazing. What psychopaths.
Yeah.
But I guess like when you get people together, where it's like their thing, it makes sense.
Right. The body.
Competitive spirit.
Your nickname is the body.
It's Jesse the Body Ventura. Like, it sounds like his middle name.
And believe me, I am the voice of the independent voter in this United States of America.
I know.
To me,
because now that he's a politician, you're like, oh, Jesse the Body Ventura is the governor of Minnesota. I'm sorry, Jesse Ventura.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's happened so long that I don't even think about it as a nickname. But the first time, like, you're like, oh, this is my friend Brian the Body Smith.
Yeah. Jesse Ventura rocks now. I love him.
Yeah, he does seem cool.
He's very cool.
Jesse Ventura coming into the race changes the dynamics of it completely, I would think. And I've been pretty successful at beating the two parties before. I've done it twice. And, I'm giving it consideration.
And his speaking voice, it's incredible. He still talks like that must just be how he talks. Because when you hear him hear him on a podcast or something talking about.
He sounds like a professional wrestler.
Yeah, exactly.
Except he's talking about like raising the minimum wage.
Exactly.
Wealth distribution's completely out of line today. In fact, people have talked to me about the minimum wage, and I've shocked people and said, maybe what we ought to have is a maximum wage.
Hey, have you heard from the Body recently? Yeah, I think we're going to go over the Body's house.
I think the Body left his shoes over here.
Yeah, I was gonna head over there too, but I'm gonna get a ride. Do you need a ride? I think the Body's gonna pick me up, so we could just all. Yeah, he's got enough room in the Body's car.
Where'd you get your nickname? Maybe it's well known to our listeners or lack of listeners or other people, but originally the Predator was played by Jean-Claude Van Damme. And if you type it into YouTube, you can see some great videos of like the early before they brought in Stan Winston, the ultimate monster guy. The Predator was this like, how would you describe it? Like insect looking thing?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't look that abnormal to me when I saw those drawings. It did look like it has like an insecty kind of like head with maybe some like long elongated jaws.
Yeah.
Maybe like reptilian kind of head. They did interestingly say that like the legs were supposed to move backwards, like a horse, kind of like the reverse joint.
Right.
I was like, oh, that's interesting.
But like, so the funny thing is supposedly pre-visual effects. So they're just like getting like the scenes of the Predator like interacting with things or dragging someone across the jungle. So the suit that they were using was just this bright red styrofoam looking thing that, that's a placeholder. Like it's not going to look like that in the movie. But apparently Jean-Claude Van Damme thought that was the finished monster.
Jean-Claude comes in, and we're fitting him in this red suit, and just assuming, like the slaves that we are, that the higher-ups have told him exactly what's going on. But he thought this was actually the real look of the monster in the movie. And he goes, I hate this. I look like a superhero. And he was so angry about it. I'm like, Jean-Claude, did no one tell you?
Right, because no one had told him. But the reason why they made it red was because the background, it was all green.
Green and
blue. It was
blue,
like jungle.
yeah.
So they needed like the opposite color, in, like where you would normally use a green screen to replace something.
Yeah.
They needed the opposite color of green, so they used like this reddish orange thing. So Jean-Claude Van Damme thinks he's playing the bad guy, the monster, the alien, in this ridiculous looking, very unintimidating, goofy, cartoonish red suit.
He thought he could do his martial arts. He could fight Arnold Schwarzenegger. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. He didn't realize that he was just kind of a stuntman, right?
Yeah, that's wild. Although, I gotta say, now that I'm thinking about it, the Predator's head looked crazy and awesome, like his mouth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he had cool dreadlocks.
Yes.
But he
Iconic
seemed like
monster.
a human otherwise.
Yeah, he's humanoid, I would say. Arms, legs.
Yeah, I mean, it just like, I feel like they, the idea of him having those backwards legs was kind of cool, but
For sure.
very much was like a guy in a suit.
Yeah. But, I mean, the face really just makes up for it. The head, I should say.
Yeah.
Cool mask
The
also.
whole head is, it's great. Also awesome that Jean-Claude Van Damme, I didn't know that until today when you showed me, but amazing that he was on set with them as well.
Yeah.
Because that just like
Another
adds
body.
to the, talk about, I mean, different kind of body, but yeah.
Yeah, Jean-Claude Van Damme is like maybe a little shorter, maybe built a little more for like martial arts.
Yeah, like way more. The other guys probably can't do as much of a split as he can.
Definitely not.
I would think.
Definitely not. One thing that I learned in researching this episode that was very surprising to me is that Charlie was basically right about calico cats.
This little lady is a calico cat. All calico cats are female.
Weird, right?
Yeah. So they really are almost all female.
Yeah, because of the chromosome situation.
Yeah. Charlie, I mean, maybe it's not surprising because as we saw in the last episode, Charlie's a cat guy.
Yeah. I mean,
he makes mittens.
He deals
for them.
with cats very, very frequently.
He eats cat food.
Mm-hmm.
They're following him around these days.
Right. I mean,
do you think that's
we know
due...
they hang out in his alley.
Right. Do you think that's due to him having cat food breath?
It very well could be.
That was my thinking. And yeah, his solution to Dee's cat problem is cats.
What's the situation? I got 2 cats stuck inside this wall. Can't get them out.
You want to bring in a third?
I'm thinking maybe 4.
I mean, he's got a very cat-centric view of the world.
He does. He talks about how they don't abide by the laws of nature. But yeah, he's like really into like cat psychology.
It is not stuck. All right, let's focus on what's happening with the cat, all right? It made a conscious decision to go in your wall, correct? Absolutely, absolutely. It chose to be in there. It wants to be in your wall, dude.
You have to get into the mind of a cat.
Right.
I was going to say that doesn't make sense because his plan didn't work, but it wasn't the cat part of his plan that didn't work because they sounded like they got into a fight.
Yeah.
And they were engaged. And if the string hadn't broken, like if he used a harness and a leash, it might have worked.
It was the mechanism. Right.
Yeah. It was the non-cat part of the plan that failed.
Which is great because then they just keep using the string thing over and over and over. Maybe it'll work this time.
Yeah, and Dee tries with the bird, which obviously Charlie knows is a fool's errand.
No more big holes in my wall. No more cats. We're doing the bird thing. I got one. I tied a string around his teeny tiny little legs. I'm sending it in.
Yeah, I really thought they were going to make some bird references, but also I'd like to just quickly reference Charlie's opening line when he comes in and finds out about the cat in the wall.
Right. We used it in the last episode.
No reason why we can't use it again.
Cat in the wall, eh? Okay, now you're talking my language. I know this game. All right, catch me up to speed here. What do we got?
Yeah, that simple line, I know this game, I use that all the time. Or I know that game, whatever someone says, I'm just be like, oh, I know that game.
The delivery of that line is like pretty shocking. His voice really, he gets really excited about it.
Yeah, he's almost got a swagger in this scene. Comes in with the Cheetos.
Bag of Cheetos.
Yeah, and this whole thing is really great. I think Charlie's on fire at this episode because Dennis does like his dance and then Charlie approaches with his dance.
Yeah.
There's a great interaction where Dennis asks him if he wants a skinless apple.
Hey, you want a skinless apple, bud?
Yup.
2 skinless apples, D.
There's good energy.
He's alpha.
Yeah. He's really, I don't know what's going on there, but it's really great.
On a similar note, just a small detail. I love the continuation of Charlie with the bag of Cheetos. I don't know how far away they live from each other. Probably seems like not that far away, but he's just eating a bag of Cheetos at his place first.
Right.
And he just takes the whole thing with him to Dee's apartment, where he obviously has Cheeto fingers and he's just like touching the wall. And then progressively throughout the episode, there's like more and more Cheeto fingers on the wall.
Yeah, so they must live close enough for him to not finish a bag of Cheetos by the time he gets over there.
If you can measure distance in how like Cheeto consumption rate.
Right. Well, it's probably an 8-ounce bag, I guess. So I would say within 4 blocks.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's close.
Also, I love when Charlie first lays out his plan for the cat solution. He says,
here's what we're going to do. I'm going to crack a little hole in your wall. Tiny one. It'll be cool.
His delivery of it. Basically, everything he says in this scene is so good.
Which leads me to my next thing. What are some of your favorite lines from this episode?
We just went through quite a few of them.
Same here.
The skinless apple and yup is killer. But back at Charlie and Frank's apartment when Mac first shows up, when he's first using the toe knife, Mac sees it and gets freaked out. Frank's series of lines with, botched. He just yells out botched. And then I botched it, his whole, line there. And then Mac's response when he tries to plug it up with his trash, literally just says,
do not plug an open wound with trash.
Good advice.
And then when Mac says, use a sock, and Charlie, is complaining about wasting a perfectly good sock. But Frank delivers this line.
Oh, wait a minute. That's working. Well, it's acting like a cut glove.
Incredible.
What is a cut glove?
Something form-fitting to go over a cut.
I mean, why wouldn't it be a cut sock? Because,
because that doesn't sound as funny.
My question is, do they cut their hands so often that they've established that there's a certain type of glove, or any glove you put on your hand when it's cut will the equivalent of a bandage?
Totally possible.
And it's become such a thing that they can reference other things to it. You wouldn't understand what he was saying unless he referenced it as a cut glove.
I like this world building you're doing. Yeah, I think you're onto something.
Yeah, just so strange.
When Dennis calls Charlie, they play that so well that it seems like a high school relationship. Like, did they mention me?
Talking about me?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Charlie's just like so fed up with it. And I believe the line is,
what is this, dude? Did you call me just to talk about Mac, okay? Because I don't want to talk about Mac with you.
Is he talking about me?
No. Dennis is, trying to play it off. I guess that's more of the exemplification of their codependency.
Yeah. The scene between Dennis and Dee about the apples, the skin full of toxins, I think that's my favorite scene from this episode. It's like the line specifically is,
I do not like it with the skin, Dee. I'm not allowed to eat it with the skin. I'm not allowed.
Right.
Always Sunny is at its best for me when they're being incredibly annoying. And Dennis is being more annoying than maybe anyone ever has been on this show.
Yeah, it's interesting. He almost uses his rage voice.
Then I will come down on this hospital like the hammer of Thor. The thunder of my vengeance will echo through these corridors like the gust of 1,000 winds.
Yeah.
In a restrained, sort of subservient, childish way. And normally I hate Dennis, but I think he does a great job. I think he's good in this scene, in this episode.
And there's just a quick little shot of him when Dee finally caves after he throws that tantrum. He just says, yeah, because he's so happy he manipulated her into doing it for him.
Right.
He's so pleased with himself.
We didn't mention this earlier, but when Mac and Dennis are talking about the movie and, Mac is sensing some difference. He's also questioning why he didn't text him back, blah, 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 911. Mac creeps closer and closer to him.
Oh my God, yes.
As Dennis backs up. It is so good.
Well, the big deal, Dennis, is that I wasn't even consulted on the decision, okay? And this is a big deal to me as well. It's also my night.
There's a lot of Mac isn't traditionally the best actor, but he's really good at doing what he was doing there as this coupley sort of thing where that disconnect.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. That scene when Dennis and Mac are breaking up is like so believable. I mean, I can relate. I feel like I've been in situations like that before. Like probably everyone has.
Right.
And it's so well acted. Like I was having the same thought. Like Rob McElhenney's really making this real.
Right. Slowly creeping forward, like not letting, almost like he knows what's happening.
Right.
But he's trying to like force the connection by proximity. But like he wants to keep the emotional bond together by forcing a physical bond or something.
Right. Yeah, and it's just making it a zillion times worse.
Or maybe he's responding to emotional distance by trying to close the physical distance between them.
Good observation.
He's like compensating. Also, complete opposite, because it's almost like bad acting that's good is more in the traditional Always Sunny method. But I think it's when the police officer shows up at the door.
Right.
And Dennis just looks back at Mac, and he looks at his fingernail and says,
I'll pack my things.
And he kind of like turns and boyishly or coyishly, like just like sheepishly walks back into his room. It reminded me so much of his character that he uses at the funeral, Barbara's sister.
Oh, yeah. Right.
When he gets denied, and then he just kind of like
it's
coyly
that
walks away.
Kind of like head tilted down.
Mm-hmm.
Top to bottom amazing scene is when Dennis frantically comes in and announces that he accidentally swallowed some apple seeds.
I swallowed apple seeds.
And the differing opinions from Dee and Charlie, and he believes Charlie over Dee. And
So what?
Are they poisonous? Are you kidding me, dude? They're extremely poisonous.
They're absolutely not poisonous.
Should I make myself throw up? I would throw up now. Oh, God damn it.
but there's just like these weird myths that are floating around in the gang where like apple skins are loaded with toxins and the seeds are extremely poisonous.
It's a dangerous fruit.
I love the misinformation.
Which later culminates in, as you said earlier, Mac's recommendation that he smoke some cigarettes to suffocate the toxins.
It's so funny because they're
so
it's like maybe they learned something about some fruit at one point and they just applied it all to apples. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, okay. I guess they're playing off some reality, because I do think that apple seeds do have some kind of small trace poison. I think. Sure. I mean, I've heard that. It could be wrong, but I also think that it's like nothing that would hurt you if you swallowed it. And then I think with the skin, everyone recommends that you wash your fruit because they were probably sprayed with pesticide at some point. That's sort of a reasonable thing to think.
Apple seeds contain a plant compound called amygdalin, which can have a toxic effect. It is harmless when a seed is intact, but when a seed is chewed or otherwise damaged, the amygdalin degrades into hydrogen cyanide. This is very poisonous and even lethal in high doses.
Exactly.
Whoa. I mean, it says high doses.
Right. Again, I think there's some truth to the rumor or whatever, or to the concern, but I think you'd have to
one would have to consume between 150 and several thousand apple seeds. And they would need to be crushed.
Exactly. So I think if you eat one, you'd probably poop it out and get nothing.
Yeah.
Even if you crushed it and ate it, you'd probably feel no effect.
Yeah.
But so there's some grain of truth.
Yeah,
and the same thing with the skin. If they used pesticide on a field, the skin of the apple might have some. Yeah. Would it be washed away with the next rain? At some point, it was probably sprayed or washed, or humidity dripped off of it, blah, blah, blah. But there's some truth to it.
Yeah, okay, so there is some truth in this misinformation, but it's just like the blown out of proportionness of it is amazing. Dennis forcing himself to throw up. And my favorite part from that scene, it's not a line, but it's when Frank is asking Charlie what's going on with Dennis, and Charlie says, swallowed some apple seeds, and the look.
Yep.
Holy shit.
Frank's reaction is on my list for one of the best moments of the show.
Incredible.
Yeah. Genuine concern.
Danny DeVito is a world-class actor, and you just think of Frank as this depraved character, and then he just goes and does some little thing, and you're like, Jesus, man, that is incredible. Not even saying anything.
Yeah, it's so good. And right in between there is a good moment for me where Frank comes in. I don't know what. Oh, I think they're discussing how Mac is being really annoying. And Charlie is so cute, and he's like,
So, how's life with Mac?
I'm off him. He's too pushy.
Yeah, no shit. You back on my team?
If there's room for me.
There's always room for you, bud. Give it to me.
It's the sweetest interaction between those two.
Yeah, they love each other.
Yeah, it's so real. That's what I'm jealous of, I think. I can see wedding photos on like Instagram or some shit, but when I see Frank and Charlie, that's when I feel like, yeah.
On a related note, I was going to point out that the gruesome twosome dance kind of has like donkey noises in it, which I just thought, I know it's a coincidence. It's not planted, but it is something to note because Frank was rumored to have donkey brains.
Right.
He has a certificate saying that he does not have donkey brains.
I was going to say, doesn't he have a certificate disproving that?
From the state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Do you have any such certificate?
What?
Well, we don't want a donkey on the road eating cereal. We know Frank's not a donkey. How do we know you're not a donkey brain man?
Yeah, it seems like the gruesome twosome dance goes through a couple of vocal iterations, but physically it's all pelvic thrusts.
Yeah, it's all humping.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first and only time the gruesome twosome dance is performed, but
yeah, I don't think we hear about the phrase or the title ever again, do we?
I don't. Maybe it's referenced, but like nothing like this where it's said multiple times. And Mac and Dennis being the dynamic duo,
right? Couple of superhero, pairs.
I love the Dennis and Mac getting back together scene is like top to bottom amazing. I think the best part of it is that how Dee tricked both of them with the same thing.
Right.
And they both were like really excited about it.
I was told I would be meeting a woman with giant breasts.
I was also told that I was to meet a woman with giant breasts.
Yes, geniuses, I set you up. Now, can you please make up because you're driving everyone crazy?
Yeah, and very nervous too.
Well, Mac especially is very nervous.
Yeah, he was 6 rum and cokes nervous.
Yeah.
He also assumed that the giant-breasted woman would pay for the dinner.
Amazing.
Also, I love that. The premise is so good that Dee got them there by promising them a date with a large-breasted woman. On so many levels. One that like she would do that. Like, why would they think she would set them up with someone at all?
The hook is so good that they can't resist. You can't.
Right.
You don't analyze something like that when it comes up.
I guess that is a large-breasted woman really is a gift horse, you know?
Yeah. Don't look that thing in the mouth.
Her exit as well when she says,
I don't care anymore. Guess what? Neither one of you are ever going into my apartment ever again, okay? So make up, don't make up, kill each other. I don't care. I need to go get a bird.
She's right. She's got to do it. Just they're banned from her apartment forever.
Right. She got him out. She's over it.
And then just a little touch at the end where Dee gets stuck in the wall and she doesn't have a friend to help her out of this jam because Frank and Charlie going to watch Predator with the dynamic duo.
You guys, I think I'm stuck in the wall.
That's why she needs a friend.
You gotta have a sidekick. You gotta have a sidekick.
Okay, Will, it's that time. Hit me with your letter grade. Blow my socks off.
Here we go. And I liked the episode in general. Very much so. Loved it. But there's one thing that really sets this apart. No, I was going to say something, but I'm not going to say it. I'm going to give it an A+. Love it.
I am also going to give this an A+. I think Sunny, like I said, Sunny is at its best when it's the most annoying for me.
Okay.
I think the performances by Dennis, Mac, Charlie, everyone. Frank having like one of the most emotive scenes of Frank Reynolds and he doesn't say a word. I mean, you got everything. And it's also just like really spotlighting the alliances, which is something we talk about all the time.
Right.
And
they're literally, the theme of this episode is alliances.
Yeah. So this is a special episode. It's an A+.
You know what? That makes sense because I've got 2 quotes. Occasionally I'll get like one quote that I bring into my daily life from an episode of Always Sunny.
Yeah.
But in this one, I have body mass alone.
Sure.
As well as I know that game.
Sure.
And it's impressive. It's a 2-quoter.
If you'd like to follow us on Instagram at always_Stockholm, on Twitter at alwaysstockholm.
And if you haven't done it yet, I would highly recommend leaving a review or rating this podcast. And if you want to keep up to date with us week to week, you have to subscribe.
And with that, we'll see you next time. Goodbye,
we will
Will.
bid you adieu.
Brought to you by the Natty and New Network.